Welcome to the deep dive, where we take those stories and concepts you think you know and break down the original source material to show you the amazing specific details that often get lost.
And today, we are definitely walking the yellow brick road.
We are, but maybe not the shiny saccharine version you remember from the movie. We're doing a deep dive into L. Frank Baum's foundational text, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, from back in 1900, to really get at its true and, I think, pretty radical intent.
It's so fascinating when you go back to the source, because you realize this isn't just a beloved children's book, it's almost a critical manifesto.
A manifesto? How so?
Well, Baum was writing from Chicago in April of 1900, right at the dawn of a new century, and he gives us a mission statement right there in the introduction.
Wow.
It basically sets up the entire intellectual framework for the story.
Okay, let's unpack that because you're right. It's a very deliberate, conscious rejection of, well, of the entire history of fairy tales that came before him.
Exactly. He states his primary motivation was, and this is a quote, solely to please children of today. He wanted to create a modernized fairy tale.
So what does modernized mean to him? What did he have to scrap to make it modern?
Well, for starters, he was fundamentally tired of morality plays disguised as stories for kids.
Yeah.
You know, the kind that relied on terror to enforce obedience.
Right.
So he deliberately purged all those classic tropes you see in writers like the Brothers Grimm or Hans Christian Andersen. He wanted a clean break, no more stereotype genie, dwarf, and fairy.
But the real insight, I think, the big structural change, is what he got rid of emotionally. It wasn't just about the characters, it was about the darkness.
That's the core of it. He consciously excised, and I'm quoting the text here, all the horrible and blood-curdling incidents devised by their authors to point a fearsome moral to each tale.
That's a huge statement.
It's pivotal. His whole goal was to tell a story that kept the wonderment and joy, but deliberately left out the heartaches and nightmares. He wanted pure imaginative escapism, without all that heavy, often terrifying moral baggage.
That is a huge structural shift. He's basically removing old-world consequences and replacing them with a narrative that demands internal discovery instead of, well, external enforcement.
And to set up that internal journey, he first has to show us the ultimate lack of wonder and joy.
Which brings us to Kansas. That setting contrast is it's so stark. It immediately establishes this huge visual and emotional gulf between Kansas and Oz.
Kansas, in that opening chapter, is the definition of desolate despair. Baum calls it the land of the great gray prairies.
I mean, the language he uses is brutal. The sun has baked the plowed land until it's a gray mass with little cracks running through it. The house itself is unpainted, dull and gray as everything else.
The environment itself feels aggressive in its erasure of color.
And crucially, the people reflect this environment. This isn't just a poor farm. It's a place where the world is literally sucking the life and color out of its inhabitants.
Exactly. Aunt Em, who was once young and pretty, is described now as thin and gaunt. Her eyes are a sober gray, and the book says she never smiled now.
And Uncle Henry is just as bad.
He's gray also, from his long beard to his rough boots. He's perpetually overworked, weathered, and the most devastating line about him is simply that he did not know what joy was. They're just emotionally and physically exhausted by the grayness.
It really makes Toto's existence seem like a small miracle.
It does. He's this little black dog with silky hair and twinkling eyes, and the text basically describes him as the one thing that saves Dorothy from growing as gray as her other surroundings.
He's her last connection to any kind of vibrant life before the cyclone literally rips her away.
And that transportation is so key. The cyclone carries the house, with Dorothy and Toto inside, miles and miles away, as easily as you could carry a feather. It's this act of violent chaos that results in a surprisingly gentle landing.
And what a contrast. The house lands very gently for a cyclone in the midst of a country of marvelous beauty.
Yes. You shift instantly from that desaturated gray to this vivid, almost shocking saturation. There are lovely patches of greensward, luscious fruits, gorgeous flowers, a sparkling brook.
It's a total explosion of sensory input. It immediately signals that Dorothy has crossed a fundamental border.
A border into a whole new world. And that border brings us into the what you could call the geopolitics of Oz.
Because her arrival is a geopolitical event, she gets there via the cyclone, and her house, this symbol of Kansas despair, immediately and accidentally acquires magical power.
By killing the Wicked Witch of the East.
Exactly.
Yeah, she goes from this innocent, harmless little girl who had never hurt a fly to being seen as a sorceress in the eyes of the Munchkins. They're ecstatic, they're hailing her as a hero.
But Dorothy is just utterly bewildered. The Good Witch of the North has to explain to her that witches still exist here.
Which raises the fundamental question,
Right.
why? Why does magic still thrive in Oz when Aunt Em taught Dorothy that all the witches vanished years ago?
And the answer is pure geographic isolation, a structural element Baum deliberately engineered.
Right. Oz is fundamentally cut off from modernity. It's geographically isolated from the rest of the world by a great desert on all four sides, north, south, east, and west,
And this desert is no joke. It's so wide and hot that no one has ever crossed it.
which ensures, critically, that Oz has never been civilized.
Hmm.
The rules of the civilized world, where magic dies out, just don't apply here. Magic is still real because modern logical thought hasn't infiltrated this isolated land.
And the land itself is so neatly sectioned with this strict, color-coded social order. The colors are really essential for knowing who people are and where you are.
You've got the four main regions in the central city. The east belongs to the Munchkins, and their color is blue.
The west belongs to the Winkies, and they're all about yellow.
The south is for the Quadlings, colored red. And the north, home of the Good Witch, who, ironically, wears a white gown and hat, is generally seen as a place of protection.
And right in the center, of course, the Emerald City, which is, by decree, green.
So Dorothy arrives in this blue country of the Munchkins, and she immediately gets two crucial assets that are going to define her entire journey. First, the Good Witch of the North takes the silver shoes from the dead witch's feet.
She gets this true functional magic just out of sheer practicality. The shoes are silver, they have pointed toes, they fit her perfectly, and they never seem to wear out.
And she just puts them on because her old leather shoes were worn out from her life in Kansas.
Yeah.
She literally walks away wearing incredible power, but she's completely oblivious to what it is. It's the ultimate hidden asset.
And the second asset is personal protection. It's something she gets before she takes a single step on her journey.
Yes. She asks the Good Witch of the North to go with her to the Emerald City, and the witch says no, but she offers this crucial parting gift.
It's the protection of what? Reputation.
Exactly. The Good Witch gives Dorothy a kiss on her forehead, and she promises that I've been kissed by the Witch of the North.
And it's not invisible. It leaves a round, shining mark.
A visible, magical sign of patronage. And that small detail is absolutely pivotal. It dictates her survival later on when she meets the winged monkeys, who are bound by ancient magic not to harm a person marked by a good witch.
Okay, so that brings us to the heart of the narrative. The journey of self-discovery. This is where Baum's structure gets really fascinating because he sets up these companions.
All of them believe they are fundamentally deficient.
Right. Lacking brains, a heart, or courage. And their entire quest is built on this irony that they already possess these qualities and they prove it through their actions on the road.
The irony is so layered. We should probably spend some time dissecting the self-diagnosis of each one, starting with the Scarecrow, the first friend she meets.
Okay, so he's stuffed with straw, wears old munchkin blue clothes, has a painted face, and his argument for needing brains is all rooted in this fear of judgment and a lack of experience.
He laments that he really knows nothing whatever because he was made only the day before yesterday.
And yet, almost immediately after he says this, he displays this incredible inherent logic.
He really does. They enter a dark, intimidating forest. Dorothy's worried they'll lose the path, and the Scarecrow just calmly deduces the way forward.
He says, if this road goes in, it must come out. He knows exactly where they have to go just by applying basic reasoning.
And when Dorothy calls him clever for it, he actually rejects the compliment. He says, certainly, that is why I know it. If it required brains to figure it out, I never should have said it.
Which sets up that core dichotomy Baum is exploring. He's confusing knowledge acquisition, which he lacks because he's only a day old, with critical thinking, which he has in spades.
He needs experience to gain knowledge, not a literal physical brain. The journey itself becomes his education.
Then there's the Tin Woodman, and his backstory is it's far more brutal and intentional than a lot of the adaptations show.
Oh, absolutely. His transformation wasn't some random accident. It was a direct consequence of a failed relationship engineered by the Wicked Witch of the East.
The text details this really tragic story. He was in love with a beautiful munchkin maiden, but this lazy old woman wanted the maiden as her servant.
So she paid the Wicked Witch to prevent the marriage, and the witch enchanted his axe.
And that enchanted axe didn't just kill him, it slowly dismembered him piece by piece. First his legs, then his arms, and then his head, all replaced with tin.
And the final cut, the one that truly destroyed him, was the one that split his body in two, and that led to his full tin form. And with the loss of his physical heart, he lost his ability to feel love for the Munchkin maiden he was convinced he could not love anymore.
And he argues that he needs a heart to be his moral guide because he's afraid he might accidentally do wrong.
Yet he is the most meticulous, cautious character in the book. When they're walking, he pauses to step carefully over a tiny ant, worried he might crush it.
It's this profound paradox of compassion.
He chooses kindness constantly. He relies on extreme volitional caution, precisely because he believes he has no internal impulsive guide like a heart. So his kindness is an active decision, which you could argue makes it even purer than impulsive empathy.
And we can't forget his constant peril, rust. We learn he was immobilized for an entire year just holding his axe in the air.
And later, when he cries joyful tears, he immediately seizes up. The oil can isn't just an accessory. It's the mechanism of his fragile existence. He has to constantly pay attention to his metallic body, or any emotional expression could literally freeze him in place.
And finally, the cowardly lion.
He's huge, as big as a small horse, and he's supposed to be the king of beasts. But he's crippled by self-doubt. He confesses he's a terrible coward who runs away, even in his own mind.
His self-assessment is all about his deception. He learned to roar really loudly because he figured out that every living thing was frightened and got out of my way.
But he admits that if an elephant or a tiger had ever called his bluff and decided to fight, he would have run instantly. They just never challenged him because the sound was so effective.
And the key takeaway here, which Oz confirms later, is that the lion is confusing fear with a lack of courage.
Right. Oz tells him there is no living thing that is not afraid when it faces danger. True courage is in facing danger when you are afraid, and that kind of courage you have in plenty.
So his internal conflict, feeling fear but acting aggressively, is his biggest obstacle, not a lack of innate valor.
Okay, let's track their journey now, because the road to the Emerald City is basically a carefully constructed testing ground. They face trials that systematically force them to use the very attributes they claim to be lacking.
It's the structural genius of Baum, really.
It is. The trials are proof of concept. The first major test is this deep, rocky ditch. After the Scarecrow logically suggests they chop down a tree to make a bridge, they get halfway across and run into the monstrous Kalitas.
And these things are terrifying. They have bodies like bears and heads like tigers, and they really hate the travelers.
The cowardly lion, who just finished lamenting his cowardice, immediately displays this incredible defensive strength. He roars, he's ready to fight, he's defending the party.
And the moment the Kalitas try to cross that tree bridge, the Tin Woodman swings his axe, chops the end of the tree, and sends them all tumbling down to the rocks below.
The lion's courage to face the threat enabled the woodman's strength to deliver the solution.
Then they hit that deadly set piece, the great meadow of scarlet poppies. This is such a brilliant magical obstacle because it only affects certain members of the party.
The scent of the flowers is a lethal narcotic. It's powerful enough to cause perpetual sleep. Dorothy, Toto, and the lion, being people of flesh and blood, quickly succumb. They fall asleep and can't be woken up.
And only the Woodman and the Scarecrow, made of tin and straw, are left standing. Their supposed deficiencies actually make them immune to this flesh-based magic.
Right, and this crisis forces the woodman to perform his heartfelt act.
Tell us about that.
While they're standing vigil, they see a tiny creature, a field mouse queen, being chased by a menacing wildcat. And despite claiming he has no heart and can't feel emotion, the woodman raises his axe and, in a moment of pure, selfless defense, he cuts the wildcat's head clean off.
He didn't even think about it.
No, he just saw a creature in danger.
Yeah.
And when the mouse queen thanks him, he delivers that incredible line, "I have no heart, so I am careful to help all those who may need a friend, even if it happens to be only a mouse."
Wow. And the crisis itself gets resolved by the Scarecrow, proving his brand new brains are already working just fine. The lion is just too massive for the two of them to pull out of the field.
So it requires planning, logistics.
Yeah.
The Scarecrow, using his new alliance with the Mouse Queen, asks her to summon thousands of her subjects. He then tells the woodman to build a small truck.
And he harnesses the mice with string.
And under his direction, they pull the truck with the massive lion on it out of the poppy field to safety. It required sophisticated organization and resource management, the very definition of applied intelligence.
That one sequence alone really proves their quests are redundant. But the trials don't stop there.
No, the journey then takes them west, to the yellow country of the Winkies, ruled by the Wicked Witch of the West. And this leads to this phenomenal structural sequence. The witch's sequential failed attacks.
It's a beautifully constructed series of escalating attacks.
And in each one, a specific companion is uniquely suited, almost divinely positioned, to defeat a specific enemy. Baum is systematically showing that their very composition, tin, straw, and a massive physical presence is inherently defensive.
Okay, let's break them down. First, she sends 40 great wolves to tear them to pieces.
The Tin Woodman steps forward. He's literally impervious to bites and claws, and his sharp axe makes him unstoppable. He kills all 40 wolves one by one with this mechanical efficiency. His metallic body protects him, and his strength provides the solution.
So the wolves are just completely defeated by his lack of flesh and blood.
Exactly. So next, the witch sends a great flock of 40 wild crows to peck out their eyes.
And the Scarecrow immediately says, "This is my battle."
Right. Dorothy and the others lie down. Crows, naturally, fear scarecrows. As the king crow flies at him, the scarecrow just catches it and twists its neck. He does this 40 times. He uses his own identity and the instincts of his opponent to defeat the whole flock.
When that fails, she resorts to a swifter, more venomous attack, a swarm of black bees.
And the scarecrow instantly devises this brilliant sacrificial plan. He tells the woodman to take out his straw and scatter it over Dorothy, Toto, and the lion, camouflaging and protecting their flesh.
So when the bees arrive, they can only sting the woodman.
And they break all their stings harmlessly against the impenetrable tin, and the entire swarm dies, scattered like little heaps of fine coal.
The Scarecrow sacrificed his stuffing, his only physical asset, and the woodman's imperviousness just neutralized the biological attack. It's incredible teamwork, driven by empathy and logic.
Finally, the witch calls on her enslaved subjects, the yellow Winkies, armed with spears.
But the Winkies, though there are a lot of them, are not brave. They've lived under her terror for years.
So the lion steps up, he gives a great roar and sprang toward them, and the terrified Winkies immediately turn and flee back to the castle. The lion's terrifying image, his supposed illusory courage, is highly effective against them.
So having exhausted all her conventional forces, her beasts, her insects, her human slaves, the Wicked Witch of the West resorts to her ultimate magical asset.
The golden cap. This cap lets her command the winged monkeys 3 times. She'd already used it twice. Once to enslave the Winkies and rule the West, and once to drive Oz himself out of her country. This is her last desperate command.
And this final attack actually works, because the winged monkeys are governed by a powerful, specific magic that lets them bypass the companion's defenses.
Right. They're commanded to capture the party, and their method is brutally specific. It's a systematic dismemberment.
They grab the Tin Woodman first, they fly him up high and just drop him onto sharp rocks, leaving him so battered and dented he couldn't move or groan.
His resilience is just overcome by simple physics. Then they get the Scarecrow. They methodically pull all the straw out of his clothes and head and toss his empty suit into the top of a tall tree. They don't destroy him, they just deconstruct him.
And the lion is neutralized through physical restraint. They tie him up with stout ropes and imprison him in the witch's yard, where she tries to starve him into submission.
But here's where that earlier detail, the mark of the Good Witch's kiss, becomes the single most important plot point for Dorothy.
The winged monkeys see the mark of the Good Witch's kiss upon her forehead and stop short, motioning the others not to touch her.
The magical protection promised at the very beginning proves its worth right there, saving her from any physical harm.
So Dorothy is put to work cleaning and sweeping. The witch, armed with her umbrella, threatens to strike her all the time, but she never does.
Because she's secretly terrified of that shining mark of protection? But she's cunning. She tries to neutralize Dorothy's real magical asset, the silver shoes.
She uses her magic to place an invisible iron bar on the kitchen floor. Dorothy trips over it and drops one of her shoes.
And the witch snatches it, pleased, because even one shoe renders the full charm useless. But this theft is the last straw for Dorothy. She gets so enraged, a feeling she never showed against wolves or crows, that she calls the witch a wicked creature.
In that pure, righteous rage, she grabs the nearest thing, a bucket of water, and dashes it all over the witch.
And the witch just screams, "In a minute, I shall melt away." She collapses and melts away like brown sugar, right before Dorothy's horrified eyes.
Yeah.
She killed the second wicked witch purely by accidental instinct, by exploiting the witch's one fatal weakness.
The immediate aftermath is total liberation and a massive repair job.
The Winkies celebrate wildly. They dedicate 3 days and 4 nights to repairing the battered woodman. They hammer, solder, and polish him, restoring him. A goldsmith even makes him a replacement axe handle of solid gold.
And Dorothy's final acquisition is also an accident. She's looking in the witch's cupboard for food and sees the golden cap.
She tries it on, it fits exactly, and she decides to wear it just because it's pretty. And in doing so, she unknowingly acquires the power to command the winged monkeys for their third and final time. She now controls the most powerful asset in the West.
And that power proves immediately necessary. As they journey back to the Emerald City, they get hopelessly lost in these vast yellow fields of buttercups and yellow daisies.
Because they can't see the sun to get their bearings. Dorothy remembers the cap. She uses her first command to summon the winged monkeys to carry them back over the fields to the gate of the Emerald City.
So we finally arrive back at the seat of power. They demand an audience with Oz. And this is the ultimate anticlimax, the big structural payoff for the whole journey.
The discovery of the wizard's true identity.
They're ushered into this back room where the great and terrible Oz, the one who spoke in booming voices and appeared in terrifying forms, is revealed to be just a small, old, trembling man from Omaha.
He confesses, "I have been making a fool of you," and reveals he was nothing more than a failed ventriloquist and circus balloonist who landed in Oz by accident years ago.
He even details the humiliating mechanisms of his deception. He constructed all those terrifying forms just to keep the population and the witches afraid of him.
The great head was just many thicknesses of paper hung from the ceiling by a wire. He used ventriloquism for the voice.
The lovely lady the Scarecrow saw was just a dress and a mask. The terrible beast the Woodman saw was nothing but a lot of skins sewn together with slats to keep their sides out.
And the ball of fire the lion faced was just a piece of cotton soaked in oil. He was, as the Scarecrow correctly calls him, a humbug.
And the Emerald City itself. This is arguably the most modern, relevant insight in the whole book. Oz explains that the city was built and it is beautiful, but the perception of this overwhelming green splendor is entirely manufactured.
Yeah, he clarifies his grand deception. He ordered the city built, called it Emerald, and then forced everyone, citizens and visitors, to wear locked green spectacles.
So he admits it's no more green than in any other city, but the spectacles ensure that everything you see looks green to you.
It's the ultimate early 20th century propaganda campaign. It's brilliant political science. He maintained this illusion of power through manufactured perception, keeping everyone compliant and in awe, all while he was living in deadly terror of the real witches because he had no magic himself.
And it's such a powerful lesson, when you think about it, about how easily perception can be controlled by simple yet enforced technology.
So the ultimate revelation for the companions is that the magic they sought was never external. It was always internal.
And Oz, knowing he can't use real magic, decides to just lean into the humbug. He grants them symbolic physical representations of the qualities they already proved they had. It's a massive psychological placebo effect.
He frames the gifts as external confirmation of their inherent traits. For the Scarecrow, Oz unstuffs his head and then refills it with a mixture of bran, pins, and needles.
And declares he now has brand new brains.
And the lion immediately validates this, noting that the pins sticking out of his head are proof that he is sharp. That's the core transaction. The Scarecrow is given physical proof-sharp objects that he can associate with sharp thought, allowing him to finally accept his own intelligence.
And for the Tin Woodman, Oz is surgically precise. He uses tinsmith shears to cut a small hole in his breast.
He takes out a heart made of silk and stuffed with sawdust and places it inside, neatly soldering the tin square shut. The Woodman is thrilled. He doesn't mind the patch because he has the physical symbol he craved.
And the lion's courage.
Oz pours a green liquid from a bottle into a dish and tells the lion to drink it. He says, "Courage is always inside one, so that this really cannot be called courage until you have swallowed it." The lion drinks it down and instantly feels brave.
He accepts the external symbol as the catalyst for his self-confidence.
And with his duties fulfilled, Oz turns to his own escape plan. He decides the only way he can get back to Omaha is the way he came in, a hot air balloon.
Dorothy helps him sew this huge silk bag. Oz tells the citizens he's off to visit a brother wizard in the clouds to keep up the illusion.
The Tin Woodman builds a fire to fill the balloon with hot air. It's not as good as gas, but it's enough to get it to lift off.
And this is such a devastating moment of near success. Just as the balloon is about to go up, Dorothy gets delayed by Toto, who runs off to bark at a kitten.
She grabs the dog, but before Oz can help her in, the ropes snap. The balloon rises without her. Oz just calls down, "I can't come back, my dear. Goodbye," and floats away, leaving her stranded.
And the Scarecrow, the logical planner, is left behind, designated as the new ruler of the Emerald City.
which the people accept because, as they say, there is not another city in all the world that is ruled by a stuffed man.
So, left without a wizard and with only one command left on the Golden Cap, they decide to journey south to the country of the Quadlings to find Glinda, the Good Witch of the South.
And this final leg of the journey is packed with its own unique, magical obstacles.
First, they encounter the terrifying fighting trees. These are ancient trees with branches that bend down and literally attack them, grabbing and flinging the Scarecrow and Toto.
The woodman has to quickly and methodically chop through the attacking branches to clear a path. He guesses they were probably the policemen of the forest, enforcing the Quadling borders.
Then they come to this high wall of smooth white china, and they have to enter the dainty china country.
It's such a brilliant shift in mood. The inhabitants, milkmaids, shepherds, princesses, are all miniature, made of brittle china no taller than Dorothy's knee.
And they have to walk so carefully. Even so, the lion startles a china cow, which kicks and breaks its own leg off. The milkmaid gets a nick in her elbow.
But the China princess is the real moment of insight here. She begs Dorothy not to take her away, because when they're removed from their country, their joints stiffen. They become static and pretty. Their lives are much better when they can move freely.
It's Baum's thematic connection back to his original manifesto. Static, beautiful perfection, enforced by external rules, kills joy and function.
Exactly. His rejection of those static, moralizing fairy tales is right there in this brittle little world.
And the final magical obstacle is the hammerheads at the Quadlings border.
These are stout, short men with huge, heavy heads, but no arms, and they won't let the travelers pass.
Their defense mechanism is so unique, they use their heads like pistons. They shoot them forward on these long, stretching necks, which are hard as rock, and knock the Scarecrow back down the hill.
It's a defense that can't be beaten by an axe or a roar. It requires some other intervention.
The Woodman reminds Dorothy she still has one command left on the Golden Cap. She uses her second command to summon the winged monkeys to carry them all safely over the Hammerhead Hill.
And the monkeys fly away immediately, confirming this was her next-to-last command.
So finally, they reach Glinda's castle. She's seated on a throne of rubies, described as beautiful and young, wearing a dress of pure white. She is the ultimate, benign, magical authority in Oz.
And she confirms the destiny of the companions. She sees their success. The Scarecrow will rule the Emerald City. The Tin Woodman will return to the west to rule the Winkies.
And for the lion, Glinda agrees to use Dorothy's final, third command of the Golden Cap to transport him to the forest where he killed that giant spider, so he can rule as the king of beasts.
And crucially, Glinda promises that after using the cap for this third command, she will give it back to the king of the winged monkeys, freeing them from their bondage forever. It resolves the magical ethics of the cap, a really powerful ending to that particular thread.
And now for the final, ultimate secret, the answer to Dorothy's quest, which has been literally on her feet since the moment she arrived.
Glinda reveals the wonderful powers of the Silver Shoes. They can carry Dorothy to any place in the world in 3 steps, and each step will be made in the wink of an eye.
All she has to do is knock the heels together 3 times and command the shoes where to go. The power to return home was there the entire time, hidden by practical necessity.
After some tearful goodbyes, Dorothy has to wipe the Tin Woodman's tears to prevent rust and hug the soft Scarecrow one last time. She knocks the heels together and wishes for Kansas.
And she arrives safely on the prairie near the new farmhouse Uncle Henry has built.
But the journey exacts one last physical price. She realizes she's in her stocking feet. The Silver Shoes, during that flash of magical transport across the desert, fell off and were lost forever.
The final scene brings the emotional arc full circle. It resolved the grayness of Kansas. Aunt Em, who is introduced as thin, gaunt, stern, and entirely gray, sees Dorothy.
She cries, "My darling child," and runs out, folding her in her arms full of joy. The text confirms that profound internal shift. Aunt Em is no longer gray.
This entire deep dive just reveals the genius of Baum's structural choices. The journey was never about acquisition. It was a mechanism for the characters to recognize their inherent, proven value.
The brains, heart, and courage they craved were just confirmed by symbolic gifts from a humbug, and those were only validated by the actions they took on that long, perilous road.
The irony is just indelible. The greatest magic of all, the power to return home, was immediately accessible to Dorothy from the moment she put on the shoes.
Right. She walked that whole long, winding road, fought witches, survived monsters, all while literally carrying the solution with her. The path was necessary not for the solution, but for the experience that would let her appreciate home when she finally got back.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. We established that Kansas was intensely gray, a metaphor for emotional poverty and hardship, and that Aunt Em reflected that grayness.
Dorothy goes through this incredible ordeal, exposes the illusions of power in Oz, and returns home transformed. And when Aunt Em runs out to greet her, full of joy, the narrative tells us the gray sadness has lifted from her entirely.
So was the real magic of Oz the transformation of the external world, the fact that Oz itself allowed for these acts of self-realization?
Or was it the internal strength and renewed perspective that Dorothy gained? The wizard's spectacles show that perception can be manufactured with green spectacles, making a mundane city seem beautiful. But Dorothy's experience seems to have genuinely transformed her internal view, allowing her to see her gray life with renewed joy.
Which in turn broke the grayness in Aunt Em.
Did Dorothy carry the color of Oz back to Kansas in her heart, even though she lost the silver shoes in the desert? It's a powerful question about whether true wonder comes from what we see or, from how we choose to see it.